Hey there folks, I'm Aaron Young. How are messaging apps evolving in response to cyber threats and privacy concerns? To discuss, we're joined by Kee Jefferys, co-founder of Session, end-to-end encryption messaging app. Great to have you here in the studio.
Fantastic to be here.
Talk to us about the changes we've been witnessing when it comes to encryption and messaging apps.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the biggest thing that's been going on in the last, say, couple of months has been the arrest of Pavel Durov, Telegram founder in France. And that's been a massive kind of degradation in average people's day-to-day privacy that they receive in messaging applications. So obviously the French government is putting pressure on Pavel to reveal information about encrypted messaging applications right now. And Telegram doesn't have the best security anyway. They have access to people's encrypted messages on their platform, and most people aren't using end-to-end encryption on Telegram. So
Pavel's been described as Russia's version of Elon Musk. He's now been in French custody as well. We know that the Russian government, they've had a bit of a weird relationship with Telegram, and now we know that Ukraine essentially is banning Telegram because they're concerned about Russian interference in that as well. Talk to us about what it means with the IP addresses and the phone numbers for the rest of us.
Yeah, I think the Telegram story isn't necessarily, or the Pavel story is a bit convoluted, because obviously he started off in Russia as being the founder of the Russian version of Facebook, basically.
Loved, hated, loved. Yes,
exactly. And then moved out because they wanted Ukrainian users' information, and he denied that request, and then he set up Telegram. And he said he wouldn't go back to Russia, but he had gone back 20 or 30 times during that initial period where he was kind of kicked out of the country. So in terms of Telegram's policies, though, they haven't actually changed all too much. They've always had the access to that information, the IP addresses and the users' phone numbers. It just seems that after the arrest of Pavel in France, they're taking an approach of being more cooperative with law enforcement than they previously were. So I think for users, that can have a negative impact because their personal information may be shared with these agencies around the world, depending on the requests.
So Kee, give us an idea as to why you believe it's so important for messaging apps to avoid retaining personal data.
Well, I think it's evidenced by the Telegram case. You have not just the French government, which we may think have honorable intentions in requesting this data, but you may have more despotic governments like Iran or China or Russia that may want access to individual users' information. And once you create the systems to collect that information, it's very hard to say that one country can have it and another country can't, because you've entered a point of compliance. So then you need to decide which country has access and doesn't. The better position to be in is that the company itself doesn't have access to any of that information, so that when people come and ask, or when hackers are trying to hack into honeypots of information, it's not actually there. If a government comes and asks you, give us the information of a user, you can basically say, it doesn't actually exist on our
plausible
platform.
Deniability, right? So if you don't keep the data, there's no data to hand over to governments.
Exactly. And that's, I think, the fundamental shift from the idea of a centralized messaging application to a decentralized messaging application, where instead of the central company holding all of the data and using that to serve the users, it's a decentralized set of nodes. So if you want the data, you have to go to the decentralized network and you have to issue them with the request for data.
What do you think it does for the reputation of a messaging app if they don't keep your data? I look at Apple, for example, who go out of their way to advertise, we just put privacy number one, because if we don't, we know we're pretty much done as a business these days.
Well, I think that's going to be the emerging business model in the future as well. People care about their privacy, obviously, and they want companies that minimize access to their data, or at least give them ownership over their data as well. So I think minimization is the key thing to focus on here. If you don't store the data in the first place, hackers can't access it, it can't be used to train large AI models, and it can't be requested by despotic governments around the world who want access to that to kind of track users through the internet.
And talk to us about SIM swapping and what you guys are doing at Session.
Yeah, so I mean, SIM swapping, another massive issue that's emerging for messaging applications, but also just generally in the security world.
How so?
Well, I mean, for example, with Signal last year, they had an incident where their SIM provider, Twilio, which is another business, got hacked, and that Twilio hack then extended down to Signal for the compromise of Signal users' messages. So there was a couple of accounts that were targeted, journalists, human rights activists that were targeted there, and they were the hackers or the people who infiltrated Twilio were then able to get access to those Signal users' accounts. So that's one example of where having a system or an account system based on a phone number can really fall apart. There's so many people involved in the supply chain of phone numbers that there's so many individual points to attack. So on the session side of things, we don't require a phone number to sign up. We just generate a key pair and you can start using that and encrypting messages for other people. It doesn't rely on that kind of broken, outdated system of phone numbers.
Which puts you guys in the perfect place. Talk to us about, I guess, the risk, just finally, of centralized databases.
Well, I think we touched on it a little bit before, but like if you have these central honeypots of data, of user data especially, you're essentially creating...
I love the term honeypot.
Yes, exactly. Well, you create this incentive, essentially, right? You collect all of the data into a single central location, and then there's a financial incentive to exploit that data. That financial incentive could be for advertisers, it could be for training AI models, it could be for governments who want access to data on their citizenry to imprison them or whatever they want to do there. So you've kind of misaligned the incentives, and I think for decentralized systems to move that data outside of the centralized model and split it across many nodes, and then also constrain the metadata which is being stored there, is the future model of where businesses should move to, and that's obviously where Session is going as well.
Kee Jefferys from Session, appreciate your time. Thanks for dropping by. Good to see you.
Thanks, Aaron.
You are watching Ticker. I'm Aaron Young.
You're watching Ticker. We'll have more in just a few minutes.